My name is Viju, and I suppose the reason I've been asked to moderate is because I walked all my life and use only public transport, and I never taken a driving license in my life. And increasingly, as Kanti, right? She will tell you about the difficulty walkers are facing. I found many ways of facing situation because I do walk all the time. So I carry now a stick. The stick not only helps with my legs, but it also stops traffic for walkers to cross. So if you are going to be a walker, I think even if you're young, carry a stick. It's a good idea to carry one. Okay.
I think you should do applause for not taking a driving license and for keeping a stick.
Okay, that's enough about myself. The more you will want to know, you'll know. We have 5 speakers, I think, or 6. The organizer told me that each speaker should be given about 5 minutes. So obviously it will be between 4 to 7 minutes, I suppose. That's what will happen in real life. And there's Girish, there's Miss Kannan, there's Neeraj, Kiran, Vidya, and Harsha. So I think we'll start with Girish because he is the one who's going to talk policy. He works at IIT Delhi, and he will. I am asking all of you to introduce very little about yourself. Your talk should introduce. The content of your talk should introduce you. Secondly, I'll want all the talkers to focus on the situation, data, research, and action. These are 4 things they should. I mean, after introducing topic, they present some data, what research is being done, if any, and what action I think I have to say. So we'll start with Girish.
Good afternoon. I'm Girish Agarwal. Most of the work I do is related to transportation safety, and I'm not an expert in any of that. This is something I only started looking at a couple of years ago. Right? By training, I'm a lawyer and a civil engineer who used to design infrastructure, not dis it. But anyway, so the primary thing I'm looking at these days is what our infrastructure is designed for, what are the policies that go into it. And as most of you are aware, most of our infrastructure, transport infrastructure, is designed for carrying cars. I'm just sticking to road transport here. Look around you, you see anything on the roads and everything on the roads is designed for cars. And when you look at it, it seems like, especially in urban areas, that there's a ton of cars and a ton of people using them. But if you look at the proportionate numbers, like I'm most familiar with Delhi numbers since those are the easiest for me to get. Only about 10% of the commuters in Delhi use cars. 40% odd use buses, 20 odd percent walk, and the remaining are on 2-wheelers. About half of which I'd say are using cycles. So non-motorized transport is still about 1/3 of movement in Delhi. And this is not just commuting trips, this is all trips. Right? Somebody going to the market, somebody going to visit. But if you look at the number of deaths, I'm sure most of you are aware of the total number of deaths in India. Right? That's where India truly is a global leader. We have close to 150,000 deaths a year on the roads. This is not counting railroad deaths or any other deaths. Railroad deaths are another whole story. Of that and on top of that, there's about 700,000 to 800,000 severe injuries. Severe injuries by definition is not merely breaking a leg, it's losing a limb or getting disabled. So in effect, you have close to 1 million people a year getting affected by road accidents. The bulk of the people dying and getting injured are people on non-motorized vehicles. So in Delhi, for instance, close to 40% of the road deaths are pedestrians. Another, I would think about 30 odd percent are on two-wheelers. People dying in cars, less than 10%. That's less than 10% of, that's less than the number of people who are using cars. But whenever you talk of safety, beyond a small group of people, most of the time you'll get told, and that seems to be the official policy also, that all these pedestrians dying is their own fault. Who told them to cross the road? Or they weren't crossing the road properly, or they weren't looking out for traffic. That's what we teach our children, right? Look left, look right, cross the road. Which, if you think about it, is sheer nonsense. Next time you cross the road, see how many times you look left and right. So essentially, you're telling your children, go out there and die. Children don't know how to judge speed. So the point being that from a policy angle, why are we continuing to design our streets for a mode of transport that's less a mode of transport and more a killer? The car's main function on India's streets seems to be kill people and not move people, since it moves such a tiny amount of people around. But we have no laws dealing with that, right? India has no road safety laws, period. Not at the center level, not at the state level. Everything we have comes out of the Motor Vehicles Act, all the challans and tickets, and they are entirely focused on vehicle condition or the way the driver was driving. Nothing to do with infrastructure. So the Motor Vehicles Act doesn't know what to do if there's a block lying on the street, right? Big concrete block, very common around construction sites, and you run your car into it. Right? Or you're riding your bike and you go over it. Nothing in the MVA, nothing in the criminal statutes which will let you take action against whoever left the block there. You don't even have a civil statute that directly addresses that. There is really zero focus on safety. It's not on any party's political radar, for instance. I'm meandering a bit here, but I think it all connects up in the sense that despite knowing the numbers, safety is not on the agenda. We talk of non-motorized transport in conferences that the WHO funds, but no one really points out that the number of deaths that's occurring is more than most major diseases that are the focus of various health organizations. So it's a major public health crisis if you look at it from a public health perspective. The number of people who die, right? Just how many people do you think die from cholera? More or less than car accidents. You sure? I'm not sure. I'm just asking. But I think the numbers are comparable. Right? There are only a couple diseases that kill more than road accidents do. But you'll never see a newspaper report on that. So, as our moderator said, I should also talk about what's being done about it. I'd say not very much. This is something that the Ministry of Road Transport does not want to address at all. Their concern is we don't have enough highways, let's build a few more. The Ministry of Urban Development or the Ministry of Health should be looking at it, which they do, but to a very small extent. Like the JNNURM program is not really focused on safety. JNNURM, it has a nominal focus on providing more public transportation, which I think would enhance safety. But there's no mechanism built in that can say that, okay, Hyderabad gets JNNURM funding if it cuts its road deaths by, say, 50%. There's no legal barrier to the center doing that, but the center does not do that. Then there's issues in terms of what is our national policy for mobility. Right now, again, there is none. The MOUD is working on a document for non-motorized transport, but that document is in its very early stages. It's supposed to be a policy and planning document on how urban mobility can be increased with a focus on non-motorized transport, which for the bulk of Indians, even in highly mechanized urban areas, is still non-motorized. But none of that, that's part of what I am saying, what would be the feasible policy options. Then the last thing in this is, can something be done through the courts? And it's been tried, but it's not very successful. For instance, safety as a direct litigable matter never really gets to the courts. In all its history, the Supreme Court has had 2 cases, as far as I can figure out, which directly address road safety. One was a petition filed in 1985 by MC Mehta of the CNG gas fame, which was heard in 97-98, and that's a very important judgment. For those of you interested, can look it up. It's MC Mehta versus the Union of India, and there's a series of judgments in 97-98 that dealt with road safety. Then the second and last time the Supreme Court directly addressed road safety was another petition about 10 years later. This was a petition in 2003-2004 by Common Cause, which was ruled down in 2008, where the Supreme Court essentially backtracked and said, oh, all these things are legislative and executive matters, not really something for the judiciary to step into. Beyond that, some of the high courts have once in a while addressed safety, when people have brought in safety on PILs, but our courts are not really set up to do very much. The Bombay High Court, for instance, right now has sort of taken over parts of the city traffic control. So down to looking at how the traffic lights are controlled is right now being done in Bombay under the Bombay High Court's oversight. This arises from a case from about 3-4 years ago, where a bar council member had a run-in with another car. And it's a very interesting legislative history, not legislative history, judicial history to look at there. But the point being, so the courts in a sense are out to put in any new policy measures as far as safety is concerned. You can probably ask the courts to do some work on enforcements. Right? That's about what the courts would be willing to do. The legislature at any level doesn't seem particularly interested. The only legislator that ever came close to being interested in road safety directly was right here in Hyderabad. And that was Ovasi, and he acted in reverse. Hyderabad had instituted mandatory helmets, right? And the deaths from two-wheeler accidents had dramatically gone down. But then after the Mecca Masjid blast, there was a lot of issues in terms of the police randomly stopping young Muslim men they thought were Muslims who weren't wearing helmets, and using that as an excuse to harass them. So pressure was put on the state to essentially withdraw from enforcement, and the state stopped enforcing. So now you hardly see anyone with a helmet in the city. At least that's what I've noticed in the last day or so. I see maybe 1 in 10 person actually wearing a helmet. And if you look at the numbers, Hyderabad is again in the top 2. I think it's Hyderabad and I'm forgetting some city in Punjab which has the highest number of two-wheeler deaths. Because without a helmet, you ride a two-wheeler, 50-50 chance you're going to die. So anyway, that's sort of scattered, but feel free after everyone's had their say for a discussion on this. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm Dheeraj Kaveri. I'm basically a health promoter. My basic qualification, I'm a physiotherapist. So my work all these years in my private practice, I was involved in rehabilitating patients. But then during the course of my rehabilitation, I understood that prevention was better than cure. So I started focusing on the preventive aspects, then the public health aspect, and now recently I'm working on health promotion in my present community residential area. So a little bit on my work, and then I'm trying to connect my aspect of promoting health through Dodin. So there are people from all walks of life. So I'm thinking how to make them mobile, how to promote health in everything, whether it's art, whether it's heritage, whether it's architect, whether it's NGO activity, whether it's mapping or lakes or anything. So that's how I'm here. I'm playing my role of a health promoter at Dodin. So just trying to include the health aspect in the whole techno and arts event and festival. So promoting health, active transport in urban settings. So we are here for discussing issues on urban, everything about urbanization and Hyderabad. So promoting active transport. Active transport is just two things, which is you are mobile. So you are transporting actively by your body movement, or you are using a mechanical thing like cycle or tricycle. So that is called as active transport, very simple. So next, okay, thank you. So health promotion, my job involves, it's called the science and art of helping people to control the determinants of health. So whatever sector we are talking here will affect the health of the population in any scenario, whether it is urban or rural. So anything, you talk about heritage, environment, lake, everything. So any decisions taken by anybody from these various sectors will affect the health of the population. So that's how I am looking at this event. So just determinants of health are all the sectors, or I would say to clarify, the factors affecting your health. So these are the factors we have come from all the various sectors. So these factors, any decision, I'm thinking that, okay, how can that affect the health of the population? So it's just improving the individual skills and abilities, which I'm doing in my residential community. I'm motivating people. I'm trying to improve their skills, their abilities to be active or to use active transport. So that's at a community and an individual level. And now today I'm trying to convey the same message at improving socio-economic and environmental factors, or you can say something called as policy level. So you have an effect from the personal level, you have an effect from the policy level. So there will be people, experienced people who would be working from the top level. I'm the person I'm trying to mobile or make people active from the bottom level. So I think that will have a better effect in improving the urban scenario of Hyderabad. So you can call it as top-down approach or bottom-up approach, or you can call it as a nutcracker effect. If you want to break a nut, you have to kind of use the nutcracker, which should have sharp edges from both the sides, top and bottom, to cut the nutcracker nut. Okay. Physical activity, yeah, before we go to active transport, you should be physically mobile. You should move your body, you should be active. So any bodily movement is called as physical activity. I'm a physiotherapist, health promoter, person looking out for public health. So before even getting people to use motorized transport, first I'll ask them to get mobile, get active. So inactivity, one of the major risk factors of all the problems affecting urban population. It's called as non-communicable diseases or lifestyle diseases. So that is how I'm trying to link up, and we'll travel and try to connect the dots to Dodin. Okay. Active transport, as I already mentioned, walking, cycling. These are any transportation you do through your bodily movement or use some instruments to keep yourself mobile and active. Urbanization and health, yeah. Why urbanization and health? You have already seen the NCD burden. Yeah, burden is called as you are affecting, the population is getting affected by the disease. So when you have a burden, we are living with the disease. So these are called heart disease, diabetes, chronic lung disease, obesity. Physical activity is one of the major contributing factor for most of the diseases. So it's called as effect of urbanization or motorized transport, also called as effect of information age, which have people stay sedentary lifestyles. So yeah, I work in settings. So people from health or public health background, they say we work in settings. So settings are nothing but where people are born, they live, learn, work and play. So when I go to health, as a health promoter, wherever I go, I start thinking, okay, how can people's decisions, communities' decisions will affect their health? So even at Dodin, I was trying to visualize the environment and thinking, okay, how can it affect the health of the population? Fortunately, we have a place where it is little bit disabled friendly. So that was like, I'm very happy I could help Mr. Sridhar. I think he should be also involved in the little bit talk about his accessibility issues with respect to mobility. Okay. Okay. Walking benefits to health and environment. It's one of the most least expensive and most accessible way of moving from point A to point B. So walking is more sustainable than cycling. So if you have a lot of infrastructure to cycle, like Sir has told about JNNRM funds, where you have BRTS routes, and then you have cycling tracks, then you have everything, all environment is ready, but I am not ready to keep myself active. I am not able to use it. So that's how I am trying to push people. Some of the just tips so that you know, okay, how to stay healthy. You do brisk walking at 5 kmph per hour, or 100 steps per minute, or 30 minutes per day, or 150 minutes per week. You can take anything. That should be the minimum bare requirement to stay healthy and mobile. Okay, now walkability or walking or pedestrianization issues. It are divided into two. One is called as barriers, means the obstacles which I have to face when I go out from my house and reach my office or my workplace. So those things are called as barriers. And then these barriers, something called a real and perceived. Real means which are physical, we need to really work on it. Perceived are which I think, okay, this is the barrier. The perceived are lack of time, lack of safety, lack of attractive places, lack of fitness, tiredness, and injury adverse with us. We give excuses. These are the common excuses people say. You have the environment, you have everything. You have everything in Hyderabad to have a very good using a very good active transportation. You can still do it. But yes, you say these are the barriers, like women and old people, yes, they are one of the primary barriers. Disability, disabled people, young parents with kids. So lack of the infrastructure, ma'am would be focusing, I'm sure. Lack of infrastructural supports, narrow pavements, steps, seats, traffic and pollution. These are real barriers, yes. We say that, yes, it affects urbanization has these fixed barriers. So what I try to do is I try to first break the perceived barriers of the people and then push them to the community setting and then to the city level. Okay, Vijaya is going to talk a little bit about the gender and accessibility issues to public transport or active transport.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Vijaya. I'm just representing the fair sex here, being a woman, what problems I face while using either the public transport or the active transport, like Dheeraj says, either cycling or walking. So though Dheeraj says that the infrastructure is already ready, and it's just I have to start walking, but still there are barriers which I as a woman face. I am a working woman. I travel almost like 15 to 20 kilometers daily right from my start from my home and reach my office at Gachibowli. So right now the transportation is provided from office, so I'm comfortably traveling. But there are other spaces in the city where I travel during my weekends or in the evenings, or there are times when the transportation is not available. So the barriers which I face are during these times. And these times, if I have to start from home, I get out of my society, there are auto drivers. The first thing comes to my mind is, am I safe traveling in those autos? If I see a familiar face, I know I travel with him regularly, I feel comfortable. If I see a new auto driver there, obviously I feel a little insecure, and I make sure somebody knows I'm traveling in that auto, and I make sure that I inform the person that I've reached safely. If I have to take a bus, public transport to office, first thing is time, which they say it is perceived, but being a woman, or even if not me, I know many women who have to take care of children and everything, all the other responsibilities, and then reach office. In spite of that time, keeping aside, if I have to travel by public transport, reaching to the bus stop first thing. Is it accessible to me? When I walk to the bus stop, is it safe? Or in the night times when I am using that public transport and the bus stop, is it accessible? Is it in a crowded place so that when I am waiting for the bus there, is it safe for me? Or if you consider about the design elements of the bus stop, is it in the crowded place where there is a mix of residential and as well as the shops? So that it is a little crowd is always there at all the times. If it is in a completely commercial space, maybe once the shops are down, it is going to be a completely lonely area. So that is one thing. The other design element which I would like to express is the bus stops are all completely covered by these signages and the advertisement boards and everything. So people around should be able to see that the bus stop is there and somebody is waiting there. So in case there is, I as a woman, I feel I have a threat and I make some, I take some measures to inform people around in the area, so that should be accessible. The bus stop should be visible to the people around in the area. So it should not be completely lonely. Those are the little design elements of the bus stop per se. I think the other things are availability, that being the bus. In the morning when I wait for my cab, I see the buses going. And I see that people are literally hanging on the buses. Right? So I don't think of getting into those buses at all. I think it's better I take an auto to somewhere where I can take a share auto, or I ask somebody to pick me and drop me. That is the issue we face. Acceptability is more at a personal level, but I would say comparing being a girl or a boy, my parents taught my brother cycling first. Even though he's just 2 years elder to me, they taught him cycling first, and he used to travel to his college or school by cycle, and I was always dropped by somebody elder in the house. So even though there are a few pics which I would show, this is what we are looking at. We think that this should be possible in Hyderabad. Cycle to work and walk to work, but there are different issues. I'm just giving my perspective, being a woman, what needs to be done more at a personal level as well as the policy level, so that this dream which many of us see that it should be there, walk to work and cycle to work, should be accessible, keeping women in mind. That is just a population which, just one perspective. The other things, I guess, disabled people and others, Dheeraj would talk, but just one perspective of being a woman. And before this, I would, at the end, I would just like to mention about a study which was done by Kalpana Vishwanath. Her paper talks about planning cities as if women matter. So she talks about how the cities were. What she says is, historically, the cities were planned only for men. And the entire infrastructure is only for men. Later on, when the women started working, and they are coming into being mobile and traveling to spaces, and then that is now we are thinking about the issues women are facing, but the infrastructure is still keeping in mind, the male dominance is still there in the infrastructure. So if we are trying to find out solutions here, I would suggest that we keep all these aspects in mind. Thank you.
So, just not over, please. That's it. So yeah, we know there are a lot of barriers. We have to, whether they are real or perceived, we have to cross them. So there are some enablers. Enablers are called as positives or motivators. So at least we have some hope. We have to have hope, otherwise things will not move, things will not change. So as a health promoter, I'll be the most positive person. I should be the most positive person to push my people and be active and then use active transport. So these are the enablers. If you have footpaths, it's easy to walk for the elderly people. That's first, very important. Seatings, yes, there are no seatings at many bus stops, many bus stations. So that's, again, it's a positive motivator. So you should have these. Walking groups of clubs, like I have my community group. We have bicycling groups, cycling groups. So we wander around our community. We don't travel to places, but yes, we are active. We are trying to do small changes, maybe 2 kilometers, 5 kilometers cycling, 2 kilometers, 5 kilometers walking, very, very regularly. So that's what we say, social community involvement. Ramps, yes, we have fortunately very good ramp here. So there were, if we imagine that there would be ramps everywhere. Elderly people, people with medical illnesses, disabled people, differently abled people, they would also be enabled or rather motivated. This is positive. Enables means positive. Smartphone route planners, they are all over the globe. So you have smartphones, you can take the tube stations in UK, Australia, all road network, everything are planned. So I think HUL can start something like this, get into it, and help us in having some good mapping routes for Hyderabad and all the other metro cities in India. Yeah, yes, that's his domain. So that's my program. What I do is Stay Active Health Promotion Program. Doctor, I'm a physiotherapist, so I'm a medical professional, so I prescribe walking, active mobility, everything to my patients and my community, my residents, my friends, everyone around me. We have a walkers group. We need volunteers network, which is what HUL is trying to pull me in as a volunteer for this event to share my thoughts about health promotion. So he's trying to create a volunteer, self-driven, active people to work on many issues of Hyderabad, and urban issues. And yeah, telephonic counseling. So people counsel for any mobility issues, any health promotion issues, anywhere in the globe. I have friends everywhere, Australia, UK, US. So they give their perspective, their things happening there, share ideas. So I do kind of telephonic counseling for people who are not having all these accessibility issues. Yeah, mass social media campaign is very important to promote health, to promote any issues of urban importance. Behavior changes. We have everything, all this world-class, high-tech city, everything is done, everything is good. But then if there is no behavior change, personally, it's all zero, nothing. You don't have the best planners, you have the best designers, urban infrastructure people. Personally, if there's no behavior change on a personal level, everything is zero. Yeah, some of the things I do with my students. We do neighborhood walking, so we try to explore the environment around our house. My students stay just 2 kilometers from their residence. They travel by bus, but it is very rare. That was the first time they explored their own environment within the community, out of the gated community, what they had perceived. And they realized there were no roads, there were open drainage system, dogs, open defecation. So these are some of the things we documented. They didn't document, I documented it. So they were enjoying their walk. We do a neighborhood cycling, so we explore our community. This is an agriculture university in my area, very wonderful place. So you need to find enablers, some hope, some positive things. Okay, I didn't have this session. We have regular family walk-run sessions. We try to participate in events. And yeah, some of the examples, Right to Walk Foundation, which will help in promoting active mobility, and all the other groups and clubs which are working here. Yeah, okay, so Dodin is trying to connect people from walking, from heritage, from lake, from advocacy group, from safety and health promotion, and try to club and have a better urban life. Thank you very much for your patience.
Good afternoon, I'm Kanti Kannan. We run a foundation called the Right to Walk Foundation. And today my topic is walking as a choice. It will be precisely 4 to 5 minutes and not longer than that, definitely. This is a typical scene in our city, Hyderabad. Road accidents, leading death cause. Everybody has been talking about it. It was earlier 9th leading death cause, now expected to be 5th leading death cause. That hardly matters to us because we are not the pedestrians. Again, huge social costs. 3% of our GDP we spend on road accidents alone. Why is pedestrian infrastructure neglected? Let's come to that core issue. Why is it neglected in our country and worldwide, the developed countries? They have world-class pedestrian infrastructure simply because of 2 things. Decision makers do not use public transport, period. The commissioner does not use public transport. The second thing is we value only our life and not the life of others. We value only our life or the life of our family members, our kith or kin, friends. We don't value the life of the non-VIPs, period. Mandatory health warning probably, Active, this is actually data coming in from Hyderabad. One part of it is from Hyderabad. 20% of lung cancer patients eventually die. But again, let's relax. We are not part of that 20%. It's only the poor. So chill, relax. We are not part of the 20% because we are in gated communities, please. We are in high societies. We actually don't walk. We go in air-conditioned cars. So we are not affected by this lung pollution. So we don't have to worry too much. But what we need to worry about is, there's another statistic which is coming now from London saying that sitting is the new smoking. That is what we need to worry about. Just now, like my good friend has talked about. Active, if you're not active, you're probably the smoker kind. Therefore, you might be having a problem with other health issues. Again, pollution deaths, who cares? Everybody knows this data from top to bottom, from bottom to top. Do we have the right to walk? Of course, we don't have the right to walk. Everyone is affected, definitely the underprivileged. It's a fundamental right. It's a fundamental right accepted by the AP Human Rights Commission as a human right violation 4 years ago. What have we done about it? Nothing. Who cares? Nobody. We don't care. Statistics, deadly. These are deadly statistics, actually. Hyderabad data. This is only for Hyderabad. Please believe me, this is only the Hyderabad traffic police area, which is only the Hyderabad core city, not the high-tech city group. This is 407 deaths, out of which 200 are pedestrians. This is today's data, November 30th, as of November 30th, 2013. Do we care? No, we don't. We are not pedestrians. This is again typical transport, this thing which we have to give in each and every one of our presentations. This is what 40 road cars will occupy. This is what one bus will occupy, or 40 bicycles, or 40 people in a bus. In our city, as this lady pointed out, we have more than 70 people in a bus or 80 people in a bus. Do we care? No, we don't. Road space allocation, somebody has talked about it already. To make Hyderabad walkable, this is what we need to do. We need to make this is the Raitu Bazaar footpath, which is alongside the PV Narasimha Rao flyover, which is constructed with the JNNURM funds of 600 crores. JNNURM gave it to HMDA, which in turn got this flyover constructed. 600 crores flyover, and alongside it, just below it, I'm not talking about alongside it, does not mean on the flyover, please. We don't want pedestrians on the flyovers, definitely not. We want this to change. This is not changed. This is never going to be changed unless all of us, all the people in the city, rise up and say, get out. This is my space. You can't have anything else on this space. Risking, of course, to cross your life. Pedestrian crossing, London, of course, we will not have it in our city. Who stole my footpath? We steal our footpaths. This is actually stealing. Believe me, this is actually stealing. We are stealing footpaths. We, the community, have parks on footpaths. We have generators. We have temples. We have everything else. We have a huge bungalow there. But we have all this. Many uses, of course, we have many uses of footpaths. Is it for walking? Of course not. We don't walk. Madam, if you walk, you must be mad. So, we don't walk, therefore. This is the condition. Footpaths, again, this is the road number 36, Jubilee Hills. It blood boils, actually. This is in front of a gym, well-known gym. I don't want to name it. And I think we have tried to cut out the name also. This is 3 feet high. 3 feet high. That's called a footpath. It is 3 feet high. In fact, the Lokayukt, the justice, asked us, what is this? I think the police and the GHMC are better equipped to answer this. No answers. And why is it so? Because we allow it to be so. We, the people, have to wake up. We have to rise up. Not the authorities. Authorities will never wake up, never rise up. Because it's not their problem. It is our problem. If we want it to be our problem, it is our problem. We have to seek solutions. Solutions are there in plenty. Come on. There's no engineering feat. Infrastructure walking, Germany, footpaths again, high-tech place. Barcelona, Mehdipatnam, we have tried some things, but again, this is an issue that footpaths actually responsibility was not with the GHMC. Now, after the right to walk fight, it is with the GHMC, but that's not enough. Social issues, there are several social issues, several issues among them. Interestingly enough, I would like to take up just one issue probably. The free vehicles, free fuel. This is the most critical issue amongst the whole lot. The entire thing is okay. But believe me, the local corporator is given a car, gaadi le lo, given fuel. Why won't he use it? Earlier, he used to come and ask you votes. Now you've made him a corporator, very good thing. Now, when will he come to you? Next 5 years later. Why is it so? Because we have made him so. It is our fault. Let's wake up. Let's wake up. And there are several issues. Among them, most importantly, is probably the attitudinal issues. We are a feudal society, believe me. So what needs to be done? Have I exceeded my time? No. Okay. Lots of this, why it needs to be improved. What's in it for me? Why should I improve it? There is a lot for us also, believe me. The gridlock, Wilbur Smith report 2008 talks about it. I think we have a lot of data. All of us are data-driven, basically. We have a lot of data. Accident deaths, yeah, it occurs every day. One fellow gets killed. So what? What does it matter? 40 people get injured in a week. What does it matter? Nothing matters to us. If nothing matters, nothing will happen for this issue. If something matters, wake up, wake up. How am I going to benefit? That's very important to answer and answer it. Lots of methods. One of the most important methods I would like to think about is encourage out-of-the-box thinking, market walking, make it a cool thing to do. Don't allow the authority to use their gadis, not even the beacon gadis. Don't allow them to use gadis. Public transport. If they start using public transport, things will change. And we have to make them do it. We, the people, have to make it do it. Again, Lancet study, very, very respected study, talks about how London and Delhi, they are saying electric cars is all junk. They are very clearly stating business as usual, even electric cars is not going to help people. It's only the walking enablers, walking as a issue, walking to be encouraged, cycling to be encouraged, walking to be encouraged. Where walking is not encouraged, leave alone not encouraged, it's discouraged actively. Footpath constructed, again demolished. Misplaced priorities, of course, misplaced priorities. There is no issue of funds, believe me, there is no issue of funds. Social justice, social equity, of course it's a social issue cause. It is like the Dalits being treated badly. Centuries of Dalits, bad treatment, bad names, I don't know what you call it. Atrocities on the Dalits is similar to the atrocities which is happening on the pedestrians today. It is absolutely comparable. Believe me, it is worse than a terror attack. It is worse than a terror attack because every day, systematically, we're gunning down, we're killing a pedestrian on the road. Every day. And therefore, the pedestrians are scared. Therefore, they are under house arrest. There are lots of social issues, The poor cannot step out of their house because they have no other car. There is not a Rolls Royce waiting for them. Many people talk about how the metro is going to change, how the BRTS, if it comes to the city, is going to change. Nothing is going to change unless we enable people to walk the first and the last mile. Those who walk cannot decide, and those who decide do not walk. Fundamentally, that is a problem. We, the people who decide, do not walk, do not step out. We only step out to get into our chauffeur-driven car, and then step out to get into the lovely office, which is, of course, air-conditioned. Thank you so much, and thanks to Anant and his team, Hyderabad Urban Labs. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you.
Russian Marathi background, the first cycle was always a girls' cycle. Okay, because a girls' cycle can be ridden by both boys and girls. Okay, whereas the boys' cycle can be used only by boys. So in many, many houses, the first cycle was a girls' cycle. And in all our families that I knew, I used a girls' cycle almost all my life, till I passed out of IIT, till I was 25. Okay, no, that's all my say. Now,
Yeah, my question is to Dheeraj and the lady from Right to Work. You were talking about the barriers, and you said most of these are excuses. Yeah. So I actually switched to cycling recently, and I plan to continue it forever probably. But I can feel it, the level of pollution. It's so much. When I cycle, it's 5 kilometers in the evening in traffic. I can feel my lungs, the dust and that I inhale. And I have some friends, in my office who have moved from the US, and they used to cycle for decades, and here they don't cycle because of this, and so they are protected in the car and the air conditioning.
you're quite right.
You're right.
It is kind of a cycle. Yes. So my question, it's kind of a cycle, like to protect yourself, you have to put yourself in a car, but you are contributing to the pollution. Yeah. So, but what can you do? Those guys who have kids, they won't put them on cycle. So, what is the solution to this? Where do you break this cycle?
We will be.
Okay, we got
Are you done with the question? We have we cycle to work or we cycle to recreation, something called as, you have a goal to do. So you, as I said, you walked 0 to 2 kilometers. I said walking for health is very minimum. And walking as a transportation is different. So cycle for health is different, cycle for conveyance or cycle for work is also different. So yes, you'll have a lot of barriers, perceived, real, you'll have a lot of barriers. So, but there will be some motivators also. So we need to work on motivators. Like I am working on a community level, I'll think on the personal issues, personal barriers, behaviors and all. Like ma'am, she is working on the policy level. She is doing advocacy. She is trying to influence or rather push the policy people, but even she needs community, people like me, my community who can support her for her initiative. So one size doesn't fit all. There is not one answer. For every problem, there is multifactorial causes. So, yeah.
I have a question regarding the decision makers making them to use the public transport. There is a huge impediment regarding that thing. In AP, especially in AP, the politics are everywhere. Even for a corporator, there is a huge impediment involving with this issue, like getting into the public transport. They say in AP, the more a person is popular, the more vulnerable he gets. He may be citing the safety issues, like I won't be safe if I use the public transport. How can we solve that one?
You want to answer or we will take more questions? Shall we take more questions and you want to, because there may be many common questions later. Take a few more questions. Huh? Take some more questions.
Yeah, I think.
Be brief in your questions and many questions are common.
People want to make themselves feel important.
Yeah, I'm Raman Rao.
Make you in charge of talking.
No, I'm Raman Rao. See, one thing we must accept is, given what Madam said about these obstructions on the footpaths, temples, dustbins and what have you, invariably you will notice people who alight from buses. Now, given a nice 6 feet wide footpath available, they always walk on the road. And I'm always cursing that. See, although the footpath is available, now I'm talking of the stretch from Jubilee bus stand to Patni, Patni to Patni Crossroads.
Come again, Jubilee bus stand
To Patni Crossroads.
Patni Crossroads.
Invariably, there is a 6 feet wide, lovely, well paved, well, shall I say, landscaped footpath. Buses which stop there, they walk on the road, and I'm falling on two-wheeler and cursing them. Now, this attitude, unless we change, they would like to walk straight. They don't want to go to a hardly 6 inches, 8 feet, 6 inches. And this is all over the city. I have to address the attitude before we blame XYZ.
My name is Louis Spiteri. I'm just a visitor here, but I have been using a bicycle in your lovely city here, and I have been walking. A couple of problems I've experienced is where there is an absence of footpath. I think I can be heard. Where there is an absence of footpath, of course, walking becomes difficult. Where there is a footpath, this has been hijacked by traders. And the other impossibility that I find is crossing one particular road in Hyderabad, which is called Lambum Lloyd. This is a huge road, and right in the middle are concrete blocks that stretch for at least 1.5 kilometers, and I see no way of crossing that road without taking my life into my hands. Thank you.
Can I?
It's not a question, but just to add to the speakers what they said, the most fundamental thing is the people who walk, they don't take the decision. That is the crux of the problem in the democracy. And the second is the lack of infrastructure. We blame the small petty vendors. We don't blame the big fellow encroaching the road. Absolutely. Because this is visibly unpleasant for us. We don't raise the voice against it. And the third aspect is, as Ms. Kavita pointed out, we still live in the feudal system. I want to take my vehicle right up to into the jewelry shop so that he will greet me with Coca-Cola and all. That's the reason most of the parking lots got unused. Problem is, where the things have changed, all the 4 presentations, I have experience in Nagpur and in small towns, Delhi. Till 1966, Delhi had a bicycle track. Where it vanished, I don't know. Hyderabad has a beautiful interconnectivity between the bicyclers and local train and the industrial area. People coming from Kachiguda and Secunderabad, they used to park in railway station, go to the Sanat Nagar, where it got dismantled. All the small and medium-sized towns in Andhra Pradesh and in the entire country, you see in the morning, the girls going to the schools on bicycle. You see, invariably, we have to question ourselves where the things have gone wrong. The urban development authorities neither have experience nor equipped with the persons who think of social infrastructure in urban areas. This is a bigger challenge. I think we should take this challenge in the coming elections for the pedestrians' right. At least, send us. We have a lot of social platforms today. We need to, advocate people on these issues. And I once again congratulate all the four on these issues, because I made this effort in 2000 to 2003 on several issues, and one of the issues was the pedestrians' right. And today I am glad that I see several people working on it. I congratulate. And a policy debate should be raised at every level. Thank you, sir.
I was surprised to hear about the lack of regulations on safety. And moving forward, there's a lot of demand that needs to be made, but what in terms of, when someone falls into a hole in the footpath and they just cover it when you're in the hospital with broken legs, like what are the kind of legal, other kind of avenues that you can go through other than just being really angry? There should be other avenues that kind of can exist that puts pressure on the system as well.
Anything offline, you can take it with us. Anant Maringati has all our email IDs and other things also, other contact details. Please take it offline, because I think these questions are very, very important. It's the lack of time that is not allowing us to answer in full form. Fine? Thank you.
I think the pedestrian responsibility issue needs to be addressed. That's an old canard that whenever you talk to administration and why are 800 people a year dying in Delhi and 200 people in Hyderabad, and they say, oh, the pedestrians are not paying attention. So specifically when you say that, why aren't they walking on this nice footpath next to the road? There's a reason for that. People are not stupid. In their experience, footpaths are basically death traps. Just go out here and tell me where you can walk more than 50 feet on a continuous footpath, and even that 50 feet without having to continuously look down where there are bumps and open holes. Even the nicely trimmed and landscaped footpaths are not proper. You have a tree in the middle, suddenly you have a footpath where 3 people cannot walk together. They have to split up. One has to hop on the road, 2 have to walk around the tree. They would much rather walk on the street, because in their experience that is relatively safer than walking on the footpath. I mean, I know of not a single footpath outside of gated colonies anywhere in any urban area in India which is continuous for 100 meters without what is effectively a death trap, especially if there's no light at night. If you're walking on a footpath at night, you have a death wish. And pedestrians crossing, why shouldn't they? From my perspective, automobiles are the encroachers. We have taken so much of urban space in making roads. They're carrying what? Like I said, in Delhi, which has the highest density of personal automobiles, they still only carry about 10%. I suspect in Hyderabad it's less.
9%.
Well, about the same, which is in 9%. Why should everything be designed around the automobile? The perfect solution for that is take down all the elevated freeways, take down all the flyovers, single lane for cars. Too bad if you have to sit there for 2 hours. Walk, take a bus. The other lane is for bus and the third lane for non-motorized traffic. So it's, a large part of that is enforcement. It has nothing to do with driver behavior or driver education. A standard excuse in India is, oh, our drivers are poorly educated, especially when it comes to commercial drivers, since there's a lot of crashes at night with trucks. But look at the data from any country. You can hand every driver you can only hand out commercial licenses to PhD holders, you'll still get the same accident rate. It's the infrastructure that drives how fast people drive and who they kill. If you made every road kinky, no traffic lights, big traffic circles, see your death rate drop dramatically.
Okay. I'll conclude this, and people have many more questions and like you may want to debate something, but I think that can be done outside. Is it okay? Yeah. I want to take just introduce one little thing that we are living in an era where resources are dying. Okay, some of you may have heard the term peak oil. That is, the production of oil has reached a peak and is falling. Okay, so the future is not there for cars. There will not be car in coming 20 years. So don't worry too much about it. And point is, the cities will have to reduce in their population. I think the future cities will be less than 1 lakh population. And I don't think we'll be needing car in any case. That's number one. But that is maybe 20 years or 15 years or 10 years. Meanwhile, we have to work towards a policy of transition to a fossil fuel free society. A fossil fuel free where petrol is not available. So what are those policies we can take right away? One little thing, I can tell you many things, but one little thing I can suggest, which has been implemented in a country like USA, which is a car country, as you know, neighborhood schools. That every child must go to neighborhood school without using any transport. He or she should walk. Now, if you do that policy, in Hyderabad we calculate, we'll save 1 trillion kilometer journeys, okay, in 1 year. And something like 1 lakh crore rupees you're going to save that. And this kind of money that you save in transport can be enriched and improve the neighborhood school, and you can make schools good. I can say 20 other such solutions which for transition, where we can reduce the present burden of transport, health, pollution. So I think we should take incremental steps to reduce our dependence on cars. And if you have got 2 cars, sell 1. If you have, and let me tell you, if you ask my personal advice, radical is to tear your driving license, throw it away, and sell all your cars and bikes, etc., before they are sold by kilos, because there won't be any buyers in future. Okay, thank you very much.